What would you do if someone you once loved was now vulnerable and in need of help? Would you step in, or would you walk away? Ryan Cole, a successful architect known for designing some of the city's most iconic buildings, had everything people dream of: an impressive career, a luxurious lifestyle, and widespread admiration. Yet, beneath the surface of his seemingly perfect life lay an emptiness he couldn't ignore. Nights in his sprawling penthouse felt eerily quiet, and despite the accolades, Ryan often found himself longing for something deeper, something he lost long ago. One fateful evening, amid the city's endless buzz and chaos, Ryan's world took an unexpected turn. A chance encounter with Clara Hayes, the woman he once loved more than anything, would force him to confront not only his past, but also the man he had become. Her fragile state and growing struggles would lead him on a journey of redemption, love, and rediscovery. At 35 years old, Ryan Cole was the epitome of a successful architect. With major projects scattered across the city, he was admired for his relentless dedication and undeniable talent. Ryan's face often graced the pages of renowned architecture magazines, accompanied by articles praising his innovative designs and visionary approach. But behind the spotlight, his life was anything but fulfilling. His sprawling penthouse, perched atop a luxury high-rise, was where Ryan retreated every night. It was impeccably designed, with sleek furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows offering breathtaking city views, and an all-encompassing silence that greeted him like an unwelcome guest. Despite the success and acclaim, Ryan felt a gnawing emptiness that he couldn't shake. Ryan's phone never stopped buzzing. Messages from clients, reminders from his assistant, and an unending schedule of meetings left him with little time for anything else. Work consumed him entirely. Yet, on the rare evenings when he allowed himself to pause, the quiet of his home seemed deafening, wrapping around him like a cold, suffocating fog. In those moments, he couldn't help but wonder, what am I missing in life? Ryan had built an enviable career, but the price of his success was steep. Forgotten relationships, buried emotions, and a heart that seemed to have lost its way. One busy evening, Ryan was sitting in his sleek luxury car, stuck in the unending rush hour traffic. The red lights seemed eternal, and the blaring horns of impatient drivers only added to his growing frustration. His phone on the dashboard buzzed incessantly with notifications from clients and reminders from his assistant about unfinished tasks. He sighed, his gaze wandering aimlessly out the window. Across the street, a woman was struggling with several grocery bags, her arms weighed down by their load. One of the bags slipped from her grasp, spilling fruit onto the sidewalk. She bent down to pick them up, her movements slow and labored. Ryan was about to look away when she suddenly wobbled, her hand clutching her stomach as if trying to steady herself. His heart stopped. It was Clara Hayes. Her hair no longer had its usual shine, her eyes looked tired, and her figure had softened, her pregnancy unmistakable. Clara, the woman he had once loved more than anything, stood before him now, fragile and exhausted. Without hesitation, Ryan stepped out of his car and crossed the street. He reached her just as she stumbled and fell. "Clara! Can you hear me?" he called, his voice trembling with concern. Clara let out a faint groan, her eyes fluttering shut. Tinkling quickly, Ryan scooped her into his arms, her frail form trembling against his chest. As he carried her to the car, her faint breath sent a pang of fear through him. His chest tightened as he sped toward the hospital, the city lights blurring past. His mind consumed with one thought: I can't lose her. As Ryan sat in the hospital waiting room, memories of Clara flooded his mind. They came rushing back like scenes from an old movie, bringing both joy and heartache. They had met when Ryan was a young, ambitious architect with little to his name. At the time, he was working at a small firm, struggling to turn his design dreams into reality. Clara, a passionate elementary school teacher, was his biggest supporter. She would listen to his bold ideas, comfort him after every rejection, and constantly remind him, "Ryan, you're going to make it, just keep pushing a little longer." They lived in a tiny, run-down apartment with mismatched furniture from thrift stores. The kitchen often smelled of burnt food whenever Ryan attempted to cook, but they always laughed it off. Those days were challenging, but Clara's presence made Ryan feel like he could conquer anything. However, as Ryan's career began to take off, things started to shift. He spent less and less time with Clara. Romantic evenings were replaced by late-night meetings and endless business trips. Clara tried to be understanding, but she couldn't ignore the growing distance between them. One night, after a networking event, Clara confronted him. "Do you ever feel like we're living in two different worlds?" Ryan was caught off guard but brushed it off, saying, "You're a part of my world, Clara. I wouldn't be here without you." But Clara didn't feel it. His promises became increasingly hollow, and eventually she left, hoping to rebuild her life on her own terms. When the doctor informed Ryan that Clara was stable, he entered the hospital room, his mind swirling with questions. Clara lay on the bed, looking smaller and frailer than he'd ever seen her. Her hands rested lightly on her rounded stomach, as though shielding the baby. "Clara," Ryan called softly, pulling a chair closer to her bed. She opened her eyes, her gaze tired yet guarded. "Ryan." "You don't have to be here," she said weakly. "You collapsed in the street, Clara," he replied, his worry evident. "I couldn't just leave you there." Clara sighed and turned her face toward the window. After a long silence, Ryan asked, "How did it come to this? You're living in your car, Clara. Why?" She hesitated, as if debating whether to answer. Finally, she began, her voice quiet but steady. "I left you. I really thought I could start over. I got a new job, rented a small apartment, and things seemed okay at first. But then the company downsized, and I was one of the first to be let go. I didn't want to go back home. I didn't want anyone to see me fail, so I tried to hold on here." She paused, her eyes distant, lost in the memories of her struggles. "I tried to hold everything together, Ryan," Clara admitted, her voice shaking. "But my savings ran out faster than I ever imagined. The rent, the bills, everything just kept piling up. I looked for work every single day, but nothing came through. When I couldn't afford the apartment anymore, I had no choice. The car became my only shelter. I didn't want anyone to know how far I'd fallen." Ryan sat in stunned silence, her words cutting through him. "Why didn't you call me?" he asked quietly, his voice laced with guilt. Clara turned back to him, her expression colder than before. "Call you? For what? You've got your own life, Ryan. I wasn't going to be your burden." "Clara, you know I'd never turn my back on you," he said, almost pleading. "I had a right to know." "Ryan, don't ask," Clara interrupted sharply, her eyes flashing with resolve. "There are things you don't need to know, and this is one of them." Ryan wanted to press further, but when he saw the exhaustion in her eyes, he stopped himself. He realized that now wasn't the time to push her for answers, even though his questions continued to gnaw at him. After leaving the hospital, Ryan was adamant that Clara couldn't return to the car she had been living in. "You're coming to my place, no arguments," he insisted. At first, Clara protested. "Ryan, I don't need your pity," she said firmly, though her voice was weak. But Ryan interrupted her, his tone unwavering. "Clara, this isn't pity, it's responsibility. You need a safe place, and I'll make sure you have it." Ryan's home, vast and modern, seemed to spring to life the moment Clara stepped inside. However, Clara remained guarded, uncomfortable in the luxurious surroundings. Sensing her hesitation, Ryan tried everything he could to make her feel more at ease. He started with small gestures, setting up a room for her, stocking the kitchen with her favorite foods, and even attempting to cook, a skill he had never quite mastered. One evening, he decided to make something simple, pasta. But the sauce ended up burned, and the kitchen was soon filled with smoke. Clara stood in the doorway, amused, as Ryan frantically waved a towel at the smoke detector. "Ryan, I think we should just order takeout," she said, trying not to laugh. "I just wanted to do something nice for you," Ryan muttered, his cheeks flushing with embarrassment. Clara chuckled, stepping forward to take the spoon from his hand. "Next time, let me teach you, okay?" Slowly, the tension between them began to ease. Ryan accompanied Clara to her prenatal appointments, listened intently to the doctor's advice, and helped her prepare for the baby. Clara, though still cautious, started to trust in Ryan's sincerity. One evening after dinner, Ryan and Clara sat in the living room. Clara was folding tiny baby clothes, her hands moving methodically, while Ryan watched her in silence, his heart heavy with things he hadn't yet said. "Clara," he began, breaking the quiet, "I just want to say, I'm really glad you're here. I know I made a lot of mistakes before, and I really want to make things right." Clara paused, setting down the onesie she was holding. Her expression turned serious, and she hesitated before speaking. "Ryan, there's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Ryan felt the shift in the air. "What is it?" he asked, sitting up straighter. "The baby isn't yours." The words hit Ryan like a blow, leaving him momentarily speechless. "What do you mean?" he asked, trying to stay calm even as his heart sank. Clara looked down, avoiding his gaze. "I know I should have told you sooner, but when I saw you again, I was scared. Scared that if you knew, you wouldn't want to help me." Ryan sat in silence for a few moments, his emotions a whirlwind of shock, pain, and confusion. But as he looked at Clara, saw the fear and vulnerability in her eyes, he realized his decision was clear. "Clara," he said slowly, his voice steady, "I'm not here just because of the baby. I'm here because of you. I care about both of you, and that's not going to change." Clara looked at him, her eyes welling with tears, not of sadness, but of overwhelming emotion. "Ryan, she began, her voice breaking. Ryan reached out and took her hand, his gaze unwavering. "I'm staying, Clara, no matter what." As Clara entered her 8th month of pregnancy, she began feeling more exhausted than usual. Ryan, ever observant, noticed her slower steps and the occasional wince of discomfort. One night, while Ryan was reviewing some documents in the living room, he heard Clara's faint voice calling from her room. Rushing in, he found her sitting on the bed, clutching her belly, her breathing uneven. "Ryan, I think it's happening," Clara gasped, her voice trembling with pain. Without hesitation, Ryan helped her to her feet. "Don't worry, I'm taking you to the hospital right now," he said, trying to stay calm even as panic surged within him. During the drive, Ryan held Clara's hand tightly, doing his best to reassure her. "It's going to be okay, Clara. I'm here." At the hospital, the doctors confirmed that Clara was in premature labor. They rushed her into the emergency room, leaving Ryan in the waiting area, pacing anxiously. Time stretched unbearably. Every time a nurse emerged, Ryan jumped to his feet. "How is she? How's the baby?" he asked desperately. Finally, a nurse approached with a reassuring smile. "She's delivered a baby girl. Both mother and baby are stable, but the baby will need monitoring since she was born early." Relief washed over Ryan. When he entered the room, he found Clara lying on the bed, pale, but with a gentle smile on her face. "Ryan," she whispered. He walked over, taking her hand, his voice thick with emotion. "You did amazing, Clara. I'm so proud of you." That night, Ryan stayed by Clara's side. He stayed awake, adjusting her blankets, bringing her water, and standing by the incubator, watching over their tiny daughter. Though he said nothing, he silently vowed to protect them both, Clara and little Ellie, with everything he had. 2 years had passed since Clara gave birth, and their lives had changed in ways neither of them could have imagined. Ryan had not only kept his promise to stay, but he had become an integral part of Clara and her child's life. On a cool afternoon, the three of them went for a picnic at a nearby park. Clara laid out the food on a blanket under the shade of a tree, while Ryan played with little Ellie, now a lively and energetic toddler. Their laughter echoed through the peaceful surroundings, warming Clara's heart. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Ryan turned back to Clara. He set Ellie down on the blanket, letting her play with her little toys, and walked over to Clara, his eyes gleaming with determination. "Clara," he said, dropping to one knee. Clara froze, her eyes wide with surprise. "I don't know how to put into words just how much you and Ellie mean to me," Ryan began, his voice steady and warm. "Seeing the two of you every day has made me realize that my life only has meaning when it includes both of you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box, opening it to reveal a sparkling ring. "Clara Hayes, you gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve one. You and Ellie have given my life meaning I never knew I needed. I want to spend the rest of my life showing you how much you mean to me. Clara, will you marry me?" Clara covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. After a few moments of stunned silence, she nodded. "Yes, Ryan, I will." Ellie clapped her hands and giggled, unaware of what had just happened, making them both laugh. In that moment, Ryan knew he had found his family, and he vowed to do everything he could to keep it forever. Their wedding was a simple yet heartwarming affair, attended only by their closest loved ones. Clara wore a modest white dress, her eyes sparkling with happiness as she held Ryan's hand. Ellie, their adorable flower girl, beamed with joy as she watched her parents exchange vows. At that moment, Clara knew this was a new beginning, not just for her, but for their growing family. After the wedding, Ryan and Clara built a life filled with love and laughter. The once cold expanse of Ryan's house was now a warm and lively home, echoing with Ellie's tiny footsteps and the chatter of family dinners. Ryan often spent his evenings teaching Ellie how to draw and dream up magical houses, while Clara read bedtime stories to her, filling the room with giggles. A year into their marriage, they welcomed a new addition to their family, a healthy baby boy named Noah. This time, Ryan was there for every moment of Clara's pregnancy, from doctor's visits to sleepless nights, as Ellie grew curious about becoming a big sister. The day Noah was born, Ryan cried as he held him for the first time. Clara looked at him with a soft smile and said, "You did it, Ryan. We did it." Their lives weren't perfect, but every challenge only made their bond stronger. Ryan embraced fatherhood with open arms, whether it was Ellie's bedtime giggles or Noah's late-night cries. Every moment, big or small, became a testament to the love and family they had fought so hard to rebuild. Family outings to the park, cozy dinners filled with laughter, and moments of quiet joy became the foundation of their happiness. Ryan, Clara, Ellie, and Noah were more than just a family. They were living proof that sometimes love isn't about finding someone perfect but choosing each other every single day, no matter the obstacles.